Is Mike Bossio, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank all of you for being here today. Thank you so much for sharing your concerns, for sharing your stories. Very informative and very heartfelt. And to me, so many questions have been asked that have been very specific, and I'd like to try to take it to a different level. I can't imagine what it's like being in your communities. The only way that I can relate is when you talk about the urban versus rural reality, and I have a very rural riding, and I know that so many times they try to overlay urban methods and processes onto the rural areas, and you're right, it doesn't work. Rural people know how best to serve rural people in the most effective way. And when the minister was here, I posed the question to her that, we've got this operational budget and we've got this grant budget, and the grant budget is massive and the operational budget is a pittance. And so how do people serve their people when their hands are tied because they're having to apply to these grants? And I would imagine that you would agree that if we could take that massive grant budget and put it into the operational side and say, okay, here is the budget that you have to work with, you set the priorities as to how you feel that budget should be allocated. In other words, self-determination. I guess I'd like to ask you if you had there's something that I am certainly going to advocate for, and I'm hoping the committee will come along on this at some point, that if you had that ability, how would you prioritize how that money would be spent in your communities? I know it's a huge question, but I hope that you can try to address that. And would you agree?
Yes, thank you for the question. I think you raise a very, very good point, and again, proposal-based funding is not all of what we need right now. You're absolutely right. Now, go back to the point that I made about the culmination of impact of non-funding and the funding cuts. We need to transition into a transformative health framework in this country. We need to recognize that First Nations need to be part of the health accord process, and the federal minister has brought us to the table. We fought for that, and we're there. But what we need to do is we need to recognize that there's a very, very broken system that we need to mitigate now. And I think what we need to do is we need to get a commitment from the government to augment the 2016 budget, and we need to put a price tag on those very big damaged, broken areas that need mitigation funding. And let's begin to do the assessment in terms of what is the financial and fiscal resources that are needed to do that over the next 3 years.
There's one of my colleagues, one of the chiefs I work with, always uses this line when we meet with government officials: nothing about us without us. That when it comes to talking about issues that impact our communities, whether it's climate change, whether it's education, healthcare, we need to be there. We need to be involved. We need to be meaningfully engaged in the process, because what you develop in Ottawa, whether it's policy, legislation, law, it impacts us in ways that sometimes puts lives at risk, or sometimes it we lose people. So I think it's important that we have a dialogue like this, but we need to carry that forward in a meaningful way.
Yeah, please.
Yesterday, I brought my 2 boys that I came here to the Hill. And I pointed them to this building. I said, this is where your future is decided. We got to change that. Like the Grand Chief said, we have to be on the table moving forward. Make it short.
Actually, and if I could just add one quick thing, and I don't know how much time I've got left, what I should have said, instead of that I want to advocate, and I hope the committee will, would you want us to advocate for that type of funding arrangement where it's operational, not grant-based, so that you have that self-determination over your budgets?
Yes. Overwhelmingly, yes, that's what we're saying.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next question is